When I first started painting landscapes with watercolors, I felt completely overwhelmed. The endless possibilities in color choices, compositions, and subjects were totally daunting. I'd often find a reference photo that inspired me, but the sheer amount of detail and complexity left me unsure where to start. In today's video, I'll tackle common challenges that beginning watercolor painters face when creating landscapes from photos. I'll share practical solutions to help make your next painting a success. Before we get into the do's and don'ts of landscape painting, let me just say that starting with quality materials is essential for getting great results. If you're on the fence about investing in a good pad of quality 100% cotton watercolor paper, just do it. You won't regret it. Painting on good paper will make all the difference. For my painting today, the paper is Hanamule 140-pound cotton rough pressed paper. This is a large block, about 11 by 15 inches. All right, here's the reference photo I'll be using for today's demos. It's an image I snapped on a hazy day in La Jolla, California, while on vacation with my family. Before we dive into the painting, let's talk about the importance of planning. In fact, this is the first don't. Don't jump in without a plan. Before you start painting, take some time to plan your approach. Analyze your reference photo and think about the composition, colors, and overall mood you want to capture. Take note of any areas where you'll need to leave the white of the paper, and decide in what order you should paint your washes. Having a clear plan will give you a direction and confidence as you paint, helping you avoid mistakes and achieve a more polished, finished piece. Remember, preparation is key to a successful watercolor landscape. Do start with a value study. A value study is an essential step in the painting process, especially for watercolor landscapes. It helps you understand the light and dark areas of your composition, which is crucial for creating depth and contrast in your artwork. It also helps you simplify the image down to its essence, a collection of abstract shapes. Here's how to approach it. Sketch out a rough draft in pencil, marker, or paint, keeping it really small so you can see what it will look like from a distance. Identify the lightest and darkest areas. What abstract shapes are created by those two values? Are they strong, pleasing shapes, or are they scattered and weak? When creating these value studies, use just a single color, like a neutral gray or diluted black. This will help you focus solely on values without the distraction of colors. By starting with a value study, you'll gain a much better understanding of your composition structure and how to better balance the light and dark areas. This foundation will guide you as you add colors, ensuring your final painting has the depth and dimension needed to make it stand out. Don't paint in little sections. Painting in small, isolated little sections can lead to a disjointed and fragmented look in your artwork. Here's why you should avoid this approach. Painting small sections at a time can disrupt the flow of your brushstrokes, making it challenging to maintain a consistent style and mood throughout the painting. When you paint in small sections, the edges between different areas can become hard and defined, sometimes overlapping, which may not be desirable for a landscape painting, especially in the background where soft edges are essential for creating the look of depth and atmosphere. Since watercolor painting relies heavily on water control and timing, working in small sections can cause the paint to dry unevenly, leading to unwanted textures and streaks. Focusing on the entire composition allows you to make better decisions about color balance, value distribution, and focal points. Do work in large, unified washes. Working in large, unified washes is a crucial technique in watercolor painting, especially for landscapes. It helps create a sense of cohesion and harmony throughout your piece through consistency and flow. Large washes enable smooth transitions between different areas of your painting, helping to avoid harsh lines and create a more natural look. Starting with big washes also ensures that your colors are consistent, enhancing the overall harmony of the painting, and they establish a solid foundation, perfect for applying base colors that you can then build upon with more detailed work later. For the initial wash on this painting, I started with a light wash of indigo over the sky and water, painting carefully around any white waves. I used yellow ochre and some of my burnt sienna for the warmer earth tones of the shoreline. 2 important tips for doing large washes. Mix up more paint than you think you'll need so that you don't have to remix more halfway through, and use big brushes. Don't start with dark colors. Starting a watercolor painting with dark colors can lead to several challenges that may affect the overall outcome of your artwork. Watercolor paint is difficult to lighten or erase, so if you jump in with your dark paint and make a mistake, the whole painting might have to be scrapped. Dark colors applied too soon can create harsh lines and make blending difficult, and transitions from light to dark will look forced rather than soft and nuanced. Do paint in layers, light to dark. Painting in layers from light to dark is a fundamental technique in watercolor painting that allows for greater control, depth, and richness in your artwork. Starting with light layers and gradually adding dark ones helps create a sense of depth and dimension in your painting painting, each new layer adds complexity to the overall composition. Light layers establish the base, and subsequent darker layers add shadows and highlights, making your painting appear more three-dimensional. Light layers are also more forgiving and easier to adjust, so if you make a mistake, it's less noticeable and much easier to correct at this stage than with darker colors. Adding darker layers gradually allows you to control the intensity and placement of those dark tones much more precisely, ensuring that they enhance rather than overwhelm the painting. Light initial washes also help you identify and preserve areas that should remain light, like I did in the water here, leaving those white waves, ensuring that highlights and light sources are accurately represented. Yes, it takes more time, but I absolutely love the look of a layered watercolor painting. Don't put too much texture and detail in the background. The background should support the overall composition without drawing attention away from the main subjects in the foreground. Too much texture, like in the mountains, the trees, the rocks, can compete with focal points, making the painting feel busy and distracting. As a rule, areas with lots of texture and visual interest are going to draw the eye towards them. So if you want your background to appear further away in space, you need to simplify those shapes by omitting distracting details. In this version of my painting, I spent a lot of time painting these little shapes in the distant shoreline and individual trees. As a result, these shapes are competing with the foreground and almost appear to be standing on top of the nearest cliff, rather than receding backwards into the distance. Do save the clearest details for the foreground. A less textured background provides a wonderful contrasting backdrop that makes the detailed elements in the foreground stand out more vividly. Save detailed textures for the main subjects and focal points in your painting. This selective use of texture helps guide the viewer's eye and zeroes in on the most important elements. Here I painted the background shoreline wet on wet with a subtle wash of burnt sienna and ultramarine, no specific shapes. As a result, the painting has a more atmospheric quality, while the detailed, sharper lines in the foreground effectively draw our attention. Don't use every single color on your palette. Maybe you purchased a set of 48 colors, they're all so beautiful you want to use all of them, but remember how we talked about not painting in little sections because it can break up the harmony of a painting? Using too many colors in a painting can also have the effect of overwhelming the viewer and making a painting look disjointed. We don't want a cluttered, chaotic painting. In this example, I used lots of different yellows, oranges, blues, and greens. The oranges ended up being too concentrated at the top, and then there's this spot of blue on the cliff that feels out of place. Instead, do use a limited palette. Limiting your palette helps achieve a balanced composition by ensuring that no single color or area overwhelms the painting. By choosing only a few colors that work well together, you'll create a harmonious and cohesive painting. In my better version of the painting, I stuck with just indigo, burnt sienna, yellow ochre, sap green, and a hint of turquoise blue in the water. 5 or 6 colors is plenty. Some final tips for you as you dive into the world of landscape painting. Remember that you're an artist and you can edit things. You have my hearty permission to change things from the photo. Also, I highly recommend using big brushes for most of your painting and saving your little brushes for details at the end. This will help you cover a lot of areas faster, and it will prevent you from fixating on and picking at those details. If you enjoyed my instruction and want to go more in depth with watercolor painting, the full-length, real-time narrated version of this tutorial is available through my Watercolor Mastery membership. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to check that out. I hope you find the perfect reference photo for trying out these tips today. Thank you for watching and happy painting.